We're about to bust one of the biggest myths out there, the idea that you can actually see wealth. Spoiler alert, you can't. Today, we're going to dig into the psychology, the strategy, and the hard numbers that prove why real, lasting financial success is almost always invisible.
So this whole thing kicks off with a story from a fancy fundraising gala. Imagine a room packed with people doing their absolute best to look important. But the person with the most actual money in the bank? Yeah, he was the one nobody even glanced at twice. How's that even possible?
And this slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the flashy sales rep. We're talking Gucci, Rolex, a slick leased BMW, and 38 grand in credit card debt. Then, on the other side, our invisible millionaire. He's got an off-the-rack blazer, a beat-up old truck, and a net worth of over $8 million. And boom, that gets to the absolute heart of what we're talking about today. This isn't just about two guys at a party. It's a paradox we see everywhere. There's a massive, massive difference between performing wealth and actually having wealth.
Okay, so here's our game plan for unpacking this whole thing. We're going to jump into the psychology behind it, then look at the actual strategies the wealthy use, and finally, the math that just makes it all undeniable. And we'll wrap up with how you can apply this stuff to your own life. All right, let's start with the psychology. Because here's the thing. Wealth isn't built in your bank account first. Nope, it's built in your head. It's a mind game before it's a numbers game. And this is the absolute core of it. When you're truly, genuinely financially secure, you just don't care what other people think. You don't need their approval to feel good about yourself. Your worth is in your investments, not on your wrist. That need to show off, it just disappears. Researchers actually have a name for the opposite of this. They call it status insurance. It's this idea that when you feel a little shaky financially, you go out and buy visible things, a designer bag, a fancy car, like an insurance policy against people thinking you're not doing well.
And get this, it's not just some theory. A 2020 study laid it all out. People who felt secure actually preferred unbranded luxury items, while the ones who felt unstable needed those big flashy logos. The sales rep at the gala needed that insurance. The quiet business owner, not so much. Now for another huge psychological piece of the puzzle, age. Look at this number, 62. What do you think that is? Well, that's the median age of an American millionaire. And with that age comes a really powerful shift in how you see the world. I mean, just look at this chart. The need to impress complete strangers, it basically falls off a cliff as we get older. A 25-year-old might finance a whole new wardrobe to feel like they belong, but a 65-year-old multimillionaire, they've got nothing to prove to anyone because they've realized that whole social game was kind of just an illusion to begin with.
And the final piece of the psychological puzzle is what wealthy people eventually learn about happiness. The research on this is crystal clear. Experiences give us way more lasting joy than things do. That thrill from a new watch? It fades. But the memories from an amazing vacation, they stick with you and make your life richer for years. The wealthy figure this out and stop chasing happiness in stores.
So, that big shift in mindset leads us right into our next section, strategy. Because building wealth isn't just about what you think. It's about the deliberate, calculated choices you make every single day to protect and grow what you have.
And here it is, the number one rule of wealth strategy. Looking rich is a terrible, terrible idea. Seriously, it's like painting a giant target on your back. Because once you have real assets, you learn very quickly that everybody wants a piece of it.
And that target, it attracts all the wrong kinds of attention. All of a sudden, cousins you haven't seen in years have amazing business ideas. Contractors start quoting you higher prices just because they can. And you become a prime target for scammers. The FBI says these attacks on wealthy people are up over 60%. Staying under the radar isn't just a preference, it's a defense mechanism. This chart right here just shatters another huge myth. We all picture millionaires as tech founders or celebrities, right? But the reality, well, it's a lot more boring. The vast majority of millionaires own businesses like plumbing companies, electrical contractors, or landscaping services. Their wealth is invisible because their work isn't glamorous. The roofer who's worth millions, he still shows up to work in steel-toed boots. And that practical, boots-on-the-ground mindset leads to this fundamental principle. They hate, and I mean absolutely hate, watching money just disappear. This is why they're obsessed with buying assets that go up in value, not liabilities that go down.
Which brings us perfectly to the math. Because at the end of the day, you can argue with opinions, but you can't argue with the numbers. And this is where the gap between looking rich and being rich just becomes brutally obvious.
Let's just run a super simple scenario. You've got two people, they make the exact same income. Person A spends an extra $22,000 a year on all the stuff that makes them look successful. The car lease, the designer clothes, you name it. Person B just looks, well, average and decides to invest that difference instead. So what happens? Here's the punchline. After just 20 years, that $22,000 difference, if it's invested and gets a pre-standard return, becomes over $1.2 million. That's money that was literally created by choosing not to look rich. Person A has a fancy car and an empty bank account. Person B is a millionaire. The math is just brutal.
And here's the dirty little secret of the luxury industry. Their business model isn't built on multimillionaires. It's built on selling $500 belts to people who are stretching their budgets to buy them. Just like this study found, the people spending the biggest percentage of their income to look rich are often the ones with the lowest incomes.
So, after all that, the big question is, what do you do with this information? Let's stop just talking about the problem and start talking about the solution. Here is your path to building real invisible wealth.
It really comes down to 3 steps. First, do an honest audit. Pull up your bank statements. If the money you're spending on your appearance is higher than what you're investing, you're playing the wrong game. Second, you have to retrain your brain. The next time you see a flashy car, don't think wealth, think debt. And third, you got to do the deep work to decouple your own self-worth from what other people think. That's the hardest part, but it's the most important.
Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Real wealth isn't a fancy car, it's not an expensive watch, it's freedom. It's the business owner who can sleep soundly at night, not the sales rep who's trapped by his image and his monthly payments. Wealth isn't loud, it's quiet. It's the absence of financial anxiety.
So I'll leave you with this question. Take a hard look at your own choices, your spending, your mindset. Ask yourself honestly, are you building lasting, invisible wealth? Or are you just building a fragile, expensive image? The choice is yours.